Lactobacillus plantarum, the probiotic strain behind gut health, bloating support, and the microbiome. What if one of the most researched probiotic bacteria was hiding in everyday fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, sourdough, and some probiotic supplements? Today, we are talking about Lactobacillus plantarum, now scientifically known as Lactiplantibacillus plantarum, a powerful, flexible, plant-associated probiotic species that has attracted attention for gut health, bloating, digestive comfort, immune balance, and even the gut-brain connection. But here is the most important thing to understand from the very beginning. Not every Lactobacillus plantarum product is the same. In probiotic science, the strain matters. One strain may be studied for irritable bowel syndrome, another for stress, another for immune response, and another for cholesterol or metabolic markers. So in this video, we will not use exaggerated claims. We will look at what the science actually says, what PubMed studies suggest, and how to understand Lactobacillus plantarum in a simple, practical way. If you are interested in probiotics, gut health, the microbiome, bloating, IBS support, fermented foods, and evidence-based natural health, this video is for you. What is Lactobacillus plantarum? Lactobacillus plantarum is a lactic acid bacterium. That means it helps convert sugars into lactic acid during fermentation. This is one reason it appears in many fermented foods, especially plant-based fermented foods. You may find Lactobacillus plantarum in sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented vegetables, pickles, olives, sourdough, some fermented dairy products, and probiotic supplements. It is especially interesting because it is highly adaptable. It can live in plant environments, fermented foods, and sometimes survive through the human digestive tract long enough to interact with the gut ecosystem. In 2020, scientists reorganized the large Lactobacillus group because it had become too broad and genetically diverse. As a result, Lactobacillus plantarum was renamed Lactiplantibacillus plantarum, but most consumers, supplement labels, and YouTube searches still use the older name Lactobacillus plantarum. So throughout this video, we will use both names, but when you search for products or research, remember that both names can refer to the same species. Why does this bacterium matter? Because Lactobacillus plantarum has been studied in several areas: digestive comfort, bloating, irritable bowel syndrome symptoms, gut barrier function, immune signaling, oxidative stress, cholesterol metabolism, and mental well-being through the gut-brain axis. But again, the key phrase is strain-specific evidence. A probiotic name has 3 levels: genus, species, and strain. For example, in Lactobacillus plantarum 299V, Lactobacillus is the genus, plantarum is the species, and 299V is the strain. The strain is like the ID number. Without the strain, a probiotic label is incomplete from a scientific point of view. Why Lactobacillus plantarum is popular for gut health? When people search online for best probiotic for gut health, best probiotic for bloating, probiotic for IBS, or probiotic for digestion, Lactobacillus plantarum often appears because some of its strains have been studied in human digestive conditions. One of the best-known strains is Lactobacillus plantarum 299V, also written as LP299V or DSM9843. This strain has been studied in people with irritable bowel syndrome, commonly called IBS. IBS can involve abdominal pain, bloating, irregular bowel habits, diarrhea, constipation, or a mix of symptoms. It is not the same for everyone, and probiotics do not work the same for everyone. In clinical research, L. plantarum 299VE has been associated with improvements in some IBS symptoms, especially abdominal pain and bloating. Another strain, Lactiplantibacillus plantarum LPLA33, has been studied in diarrhea-predominant IBS, also called IBSD. Other strains, such as CCFM8610, have also been investigated for IBS-related symptoms and gut microbiota changes. What could explain these effects? Researchers believe several mechanisms may be involved. Lactobacillus plantarum may help support the balance of gut microbes, compete with unwanted microbes, produce organic acids, interact with the gut lining, and influence immune signaling in the intestine. Some strains may also support the production of short-chain fatty acids indirectly by helping create a healthier microbiome environment. but it is very important to say this clearly. Lactobacillus plantarum is not a cure for IBS. IBS is complex. Food triggers, stress, sleep, gut motility, the nervous system, inflammation, and the microbiome can all play a role. A probiotic may help some people, but it is not a guaranteed solution. For YouTube viewers the practical message is this. If you are considering a probiotic for bloating or IBS support, look for the exact strain on the label. Check the CFU count through expiration, and give it a reasonable trial only if it is appropriate for you. If symptoms are severe, persistent, new, or include red flags like blood in stool, unexplained weight loss, fever, anemia, or severe pain, speak with a qualified healthcare professional. Gut barrier, microbiome balance, and digestive comfort. Your gut lining is not just a passive tube, it is a living barrier. It helps absorb nutrients while keeping harmful substances and microbes where they belong. This barrier includes mucus, epithelial cells, tight junction proteins, immune cells, and a huge community of microbes known as the gut microbiome. Some Lactobacillus plantarum strains have been studied for their interaction with this barrier system. In simple terms, they may help support the gut environment by producing acids, communicating with immune cells, and influencing how microbes interact with the intestinal lining. Think of the gut barrier like a smart security gate. It should allow nutrients to pass through, but it should not allow troublemakers to freely cross into the body. When the gut environment is irritated or imbalanced, people may experience discomfort, bloating, irregular stool patterns, or sensitivity to certain foods. A healthy microbiome is not about one super microbe, it is about diversity, balance, and resilience. Lactobacillus plantarum is interesting because many strains are good at adapting to changing environments. They can tolerate acidic conditions, interact with plant fibers, and participate in fermentation. This is one reason L. plantarum is common in fermented vegetables. However, fermented foods and probiotic supplements are not exactly the same thing. Fermented foods contain a complex mix of microbes, acids, fibers, polyphenols, and bioactive compounds. Supplements usually contain selected strains at measured doses. Both can be useful in different ways, but a supplement should be judged by its strain, dose, safety, and human evidence. For a gut-friendly lifestyle, Lactobacillus plantarum should not be seen as a magic pill. It works best as part of a bigger pattern: a fiber-rich diet, diverse plant foods, enough sleep, stress management, regular movement, and avoiding unnecessary antibiotics when possible. Lactobacillus plantarum and bloating. Bloating is one of the most searched digestive symptoms online. People search for best probiotic for bloating, how to reduce bloating naturally, gut bacteria and bloating, and IBS bloating probiotic. Lactobacillus plantarum is often connected to this topic because certain strains have been studied in IBS and digestive discomfort. Why might a probiotic affect bloating? Bloating can happen for many reasons. It can be related to gas production, slow gut movement, food intolerance, constipation, IBS, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, stress, hormones, or changes in the gut microbiome. Some probiotics may help by changing microbial fermentation patterns, reducing the growth of gas-producing bacteria, or improving bowel regularity. In studies of L. plantarum 299V, people with IBS reported improvements in abdominal pain and bloating compared with placebo. This does not mean every person with bloating should take L. plantarum. It means that specific strains have enough human data to be worth discussing. The smart approach is to match the probiotic strain to the goal. If your goal is bloating support, do not just buy any product that says probiotic. Look for a strain with human clinical research. Look for clear labeling. Avoid products that only say proprietary blend without identifying the strains. Also remember, if bloating gets worse after starting a probiotic, stop and reassess. Some people are sensitive to certain strains, prebiotics, sugar alcohols, or added fibers inside probiotic formulas. More CFUs do not always mean better results. The right strain at the right dose matters more than a giant number on the front of the bottle. Lactobacillus plantarum and the gut-brain axis. One of the most exciting areas of microbiome research is the gut-brain axis. This is the communication network between the digestive system, the nervous system, the immune system, and the brain. Some Lactobacillus Plantarum strains, including L. plantarum P8 and L. plantarum DR7, have been studied in stressed adults. Research has looked at stress scores, anxiety symptoms, memory, cognition, inflammatory markers, and other signals connected with the gut-brain relationship. This does not mean Lactobacillus plantarum is a treatment for anxiety or depression. Mental health is complex, and anyone struggling with anxiety, depression, panic, trauma, or severe stress should seek professional support. But the research is interesting because it suggests that certain probiotic strains may influence how the gut communicates with the brain. How could gut bacteria affect mood or stress? Possible pathways include immune signaling, inflammation, the vagus nerve, tryptophan metabolism, neurotransmitter-related compounds, short-chain fatty acids, and changes in gut barrier function. The gut does not think like the brain, but it sends signals constantly. That is why stress can affect digestion, and digestion can affect how we feel. For YouTube viewers searching probiotic for stress, gut-brain axis, microbiome and anxiety, or best probiotic for mood, the honest answer is this: the field is promising but still developing. The evidence is strain-specific, and probiotics should support, not replace, healthy sleep, therapy, exercise, social connection, and medical care when needed. Immune balance and seasonal health. Most of the immune system is closely connected with the gut. This is why researchers are interested in probiotics for immune balance. Lactobacillus plantarum has been studied in immune-related contexts, including seasonal respiratory infections, upper respiratory tract symptoms, and inflammatory signaling. One studied combination includes Lactobacillus plantarum with Lactobacillus paracasei. In clinical studies, this combination has been linked with fewer community-acquired colds in some adults prone to colds. But let's keep the language accurate. A probiotic does not create an invisible shield against viruses. It does not replace vaccination, hygiene, sleep, nutrition, or medical treatment. Instead, certain probiotic strains may help train or modulate immune responses. That means they may support the immune system's ability to respond in a balanced way. The gut is a training ground for immune cells. Microbes interact with immune cells in the intestinal lining. These immune signals can influence inflammation throughout the body. A balanced immune system is not stronger in the aggressive sense. It is smarter, calmer, and more accurate. Lactobacillus plantarum is important for the immune system. However, it should always be described carefully and using evidence-based language. Cholesterol, metabolism, and emerging research. Another area of interest is cholesterol and metabolic health. Some Lactobacillus plantarum strains have been studied for effects on total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, bile salt metabolism, and gut microbiota changes. How could a probiotic influence cholesterol? One proposed mechanism is bile salt hydrolase activity. Bile acids help digest fats. Some probiotic bacteria can interact with bile acids in ways that may influence cholesterol metabolism. Other possible mechanisms include changes in gut microbial composition, short-chain fatty acid production, inflammation, and metabolic signaling. However, this topic needs caution. If you have high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or take medication, do not replace medical care with probiotics. A probiotic may be a supportive tool, but the foundations are still diet quality, fiber intake, physical activity, body weight management when appropriate, sleep, and medical guidance. Lactobacillus plantarum has been studied for cholesterol and metabolic markers, but effects are strain-specific and should not be treated as a substitute for medical care. Food sources of Lactobacillus plantarum. Many people ask, can I get Lactobacillus plantarum from food? The answer is, sometimes yes, especially from fermented plant foods. L. plantarum is commonly associated with fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, olives, and other traditional fermented foods. It can also appear in sourdough and some fermented dairy or plant-based fermented products. But there is an important difference between traditional fermented food and a clinically tested probiotic supplement. If a study used L. plantarum at a specific dose, eating random sauerkraut is not the same intervention. Fermented foods are still valuable, but they are not automatically equivalent to a studied strain. When choosing fermented foods, look for products that say live and active cultures when possible. Many shelf-stable pickles are pasteurized, which means the live bacteria may no longer be present. Refrigerated fermented vegetables are more likely to contain live microbes, but the exact strains and doses are usually not measured. For a healthy microbiome, fermented foods work best together with prebiotic fibers. Prebiotics are food for beneficial microbes. Good sources include onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, oats, barley, beans, lentils, chickpeas, apples, slightly green bananas, flaxseed, chia seeds, and resistant starch from cooled potatoes or rice. A probiotic is the microbe. A prebiotic is the food for the microbe. A symbiotic combines both. How to choose a Lactobacillus Plantarum supplement. If you are looking for a Lactobacillus Plantarum supplement in the United States, the United Kingdom, or Europe, do not choose only by the largest CFU number. Instead, check these 5 things. First, look for the full strain name. Examples include L. Plantarum 299V, P8, DR7, HEAL9, LPLA33, CCFM8610, or another clearly named strain. Lactobacillus plantarum alone is less useful than a full strain code. Second, check CFUs through expiration, not just at time of manufacture. Probiotics are living microorganisms, and their numbers can decline during storage. Third, check storage instructions. Some products need refrigeration, while others are shelf-stable because of freeze-drying and packaging technology. Fourth, check for unnecessary additives. Some formulas include prebiotic fibers, sugar alcohols, or herbs that may cause gas or sensitivity in some people. Fifth, match the strain to your goal. IBS support, stress support, immune support, and cholesterol research may involve different strains. Do not assume all Lactobacillus plantarum strains do the same thing. And finally, remember safety. For most healthy adults, probiotics are generally well tolerated, but people who are severely ill, immunocompromised, have central venous catheters, are premature infants, or have complex medical conditions should speak with a healthcare professional before taking probiotics. Common mistakes people make with Lactobacillus plantarum. Mistake number 1, thinking more CFUs always means better. A 50 billion CFU product is not automatically better than a 10 billion CFU product if the strain and evidence are weak. Mistake number 2, ignoring the strain. The strain is where the science lives. Mistake number 3, expecting results overnight. In many probiotic studies, people take the product for 4, 8, or 12 weeks. Digestive changes may take time. Mistake number 4, using probiotics to cover up red flag symptoms. Persistent diarrhea, blood in stool, unexplained weight loss, fever, severe abdominal pain, or new symptoms after age 50 should be checked medically. Mistake number 5, forgetting the rest of the microbiome lifestyle. A probiotic cannot compensate for a low-fiber diet, poor sleep, chronic stress, and ultra-processed food every day. Mistake number 6, assuming fermented food and clinical strains are identical. Fermented food is great, but it is not always the same as a researched probiotic strain. So, what should you remember about Lactobacillus plantarum? Lactobacillus plantarum, now called Lactiplantibacillus plantarum, is one of the most versatile probiotic species connected with fermented foods and gut health research. It is found in many fermented plant foods and has been studied in supplements for digestive comfort, IBS symptoms, bloating, gut barrier function, immune balance, stress, and metabolic markers. The most important lesson is that probiotic benefits are strain-specific. Look for the strain code, not just the species name. L. Plantarum 299V is not the same as P8, DR7, HEAL9, LPLA33, or CCFM8610. If you are interested in probiotics for gut health, bloating, IBS support, or microbiome balance, Lactobacillus plantarum is worth knowing. But it is not a miracle cure. It works best as part of a bigger foundation: fiber-rich foods, fermented foods, sleep, movement, stress management, and personalized medical advice when needed. The microbiome is not about killing all bad bacteria or adding one magic good bacterium. It is about building a resilient ecosystem. And Lactobacillus plantarum may be one helpful member of that ecosystem. If you want to understand how your body really works and the benefits of probiotics, subscribe to this channel. because we turn complex scientific topics into simple and powerful information that you can actually use. And if you found this helpful, share it with someone who cares about their health.